Welcome back to Focus Unleashed. Before we get started, I want you to think about two things. What is something that you feel you are extremely good at? And whatever you feel you are extremely good at, is there anybody that can do it better than you the way that you do it? We're going to be talking about mastery today. And mastery is one of the most misunderstood concepts in personal development. People think mastery means perfection. They think it means being the best. They think it means never making mistakes. But mastery isn't about being flawless. Mastery is about being fully committed. Mastery is the point where your identity, your habits, your standards, and your leadership all align into one thing: a repeatable level of excellence. Not once, not occasionally, but consistently. Mastery is identity expressed with precision. Now, when you go back and you think about the two things that I asked in the beginning, think about the question. What is something that you feel you are extremely good at? Something that you can do consistently at a very high level. And are you the best at doing whatever it is when you do it? I heard that in a motivational speech that I was listening to. And when I thought about it, it made me realize that everyone is different. How I do things is different from how other people do things. Take this podcast, for instance. My podcast and the way that I do it is different from anybody else that does a podcast. But the way that I do it is what works best for me. But it's also repeatable by me, and I can stay consistent with the way that I do it. And the way that I do it, I am the best at. No one can come in and do the podcast the exact same way that I do it and be better than me. They can do it and be better at podcasting. They can do it in a different way. But I have mastered the way that I do it, and no one can come in and repeat that. And I think that's something that we really need to think about when it comes to mastery. There is no one in this world that can do what you do at the level that you do it, the way that you do it. Will somebody be better at it? Maybe. But they will not be better at it in the way that you do it. So we often compare mastery to something that one individual or several individuals are extremely good at, and then we try to compare ourselves to those people. There is no comparison, because when you do it consistently and you do it at a high level, you are the master at the way that you do it. And there's no one that can do it better than you. So I want you to keep that thought process as we dive into mastery. All right, let's dive in. You can't reach mastery without leadership. And you can't lead without first leading yourself. Performance taught you how to execute. Adaptability taught you how to stay aligned when life shifts. Leadership taught you how to set the standard. And now mastery becomes the natural evolution. Your identity is stable. Your standards are non negotiable. Your actions are consistent. Your leadership is lived, not spoken. Mastery is the long game. As I was building this episode, I thought about some old kung fu movies that I used to watch and how there was a master of a certain technique and everybody wanted to train with this master. And as I was thinking about it, laughing to myself, I realized that they were the master of what they did and everybody flocked to them to try to reach that level. And ultimately, in every movie, it came down to the person taking the knowledge from that master and developing themselves as an individual to create mastery of themselves. And as a young kid, I never really put that together. But it truly is you mastering whatever it is that you love to do, that you want to do, putting the effort into it, committing to it, being consistent as you grow, learn to the point where you're able to teach it. And then at that point, you are the master of what you are doing. I heard a quote, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but the quote went something like, if you spend an hour a day for a year focusing on one thing, that would be 365 hours that you've committed to learning or in absorbing one thing. With that much time put into it, you would be an expert in that field. That's the same kind of thing with mastery. The more time you commit to that one thing that you want to do, that you're trying to accomplish, that you love, the effort that you put into it, being consistent with it, as you get closer and closer to reaching your goal or completing that degree, you become a master. And then when you are able to then share that on some level, it becomes yours in a way. You teach it in your way, you share it in your way, and you are then the master of that. So mastery is very important because it lines up with everything that's we've talked about up until this point. People get so far and so close to reaching the goals, and then they fall apart. They lose track. They get off track. They lose motivation. Why? Because they haven't mastered the elements that got them to that point. They didn't commit to them. They didn't rehearse them. They didn't dive into them. They didn't make them a part of their everyday. And so at some point when life throws things at you and you get off track, you lose that consistency. You lose that drive. You lose that passion for it. And you don't end up reaching the goal that you set out to achieve or doing the things that you set out to achieve because you didn't master the elements that would get you there. Here's the truth. Most people avoid mastery because mastery is boring. It's repetitive. It's unglamorous. It's the same fundamentals done with intention over and over again. Mastery is built in the reps no one sees. Mastery is built in the days you don't feel like it. Mastery is built in the details most people ignore. Mastery is the discipline to stay committed long after the excitement fades. You don't become a master of something only doing things when you want to do them. It is very, very boring. Like I said in the last episode, there are times where Focused Unleash, the system, drives me to do things even when I don't want to do them because I know this is the identity that I have created for myself and continue to work on to make it better, master it. And it's the part of being successful that a lot of people don't gravitate to because it is boring. It's repeatable. It's day in, day out. It's not excitement. The exciting part is getting here. You feel it. I've gotten to a point that I've never gotten to before. But then it gets very redundant. But the redundancy of it is what gets you closer and closer to who you want to be and where you want to be. But you have to fight the urge to not commit. Because it's very easy to get to a point and feel good about it. And then, oh, well, it's second nature now. But like we've talked about in past episodes, life always has a way of challenging you, seeing how bad you want it. And in those moments, it's when that redundancy, that commitment, that consistency is going to be crucial because the one day that you say, I don't feel like it, or the one day that you don't think it's important is that day that will throw you off track to the point where you lose your way. Mastery is boring, but it is exciting once you get to the point where success is almost inevitable because you have mastered every part of the identity necessary to reach your goals. Mastery isn't a skill. It's an identity. It's who you become when you stop chasing shortcuts and start embracing depth. A person committed to mastery doesn't rush, doesn't skip steps, doesn't chase hacks, doesn't need applause, doesn't need motivation, doesn't need permission. They show up because it's who they are. Mastery is the identity in its highest form. And I chuckle to myself as I'm saying that because I feel it. I feel that. Every ounce of that I feel. I'm in it for the long haul. I do the things that I need to do even when I don't want to do it. I show up. I'm not always motivated. I would love applause, but I don't need it. And I do the things necessary. I don't look for shortcuts. I don't chase hacks. I'm in it. Whatever it takes, I do it. So in saying that, I kind of laugh to myself because if you had asked me last year, how was I going to reach my goals? especially at a time when life was throwing things at me, I probably would have been trying to look for that hack or that little cheat code instead of putting the work in, whatever it took, the long way to make sure that I stayed on track. Because now that I'm committed to it, I understand that if I stay consistent and I do the things I don't want to do when I get to the end, how much more it will mean to me. So when you think about mastery and the identity of mastery, it's a loop. It follows a simple loop: repetition, reflection, refinement, repetition again. And I find myself doing that in everything that I'm doing. I repeat everything I do constantly, doing the things that I don't want to do, showing up, putting in the work. I reflect on that. How can I improve myself? How can I stay on track? Last week was a little bit shaky. I almost got thrown off track. What can I do to not get to that point? I refine, whether it be get more sleep, make sure that I'm ahead of the game, write things down, remind myself, align myself with little notes, whatever it takes. And then I'm on repeat again. Most people repeat without reflecting. Others reflect without refining. And some refine without repeating. Mastery requires all three. You have to do things in a repeatable basis, consistently. You have to reflect on, especially if you're having problems. If you run into a rough day, a rough week, reflect on that. What made it rough? How could you make it better? That's the refinement. Once you understand why it was rough, you can refine it by how can I make it better? And then once you figure that out, you go back into the repeat mode and you make it repeatable. And you do it over and over and over again. It's the loop that turns effort into excellence. Mastery isn't just for athletes, artists, or high performers. Mastery shows up in how you communicate, how you manage your time, how you train, how you parent, how you lead, how you think, how you respond under pressure. Mastery is the commitment to do things with intention, not convenience. Early in the podcast, I was very, very high on the word intention. I think that is a word that is overlooked when we think about being successful and working towards our goal. You can't just do the things without intention. Yes, it gets redundant. Yes, it becomes a loop. But part of that repeatability is the intention that you put into every step that you take. In the past, I just thought doing it consistently would get me to where I wanted to be, especially when I was working out. As a personal trainer, I always exercise as part of my routine. It's part of my version of Focus Unleash. But in the past, I would work out to say that I worked out. Were they good workouts? Yeah. I would sweat. I would burn a lot of calories. I would lift a lot of weight. But there was a lot of times I wouldn't want to exercise, but I would do it just to say that I did it. I didn't do it with the intention of, I don't want to do it, but this is going to help me get to my goal by doing it with this intention. That set me back more than it put me ahead. Because once you get into the routine of just doing it without intention, you lose the passion and the will and determination to get where you want to be because you're doing it just to do it. And you're not going to get the results that you want. Without intention, there is no progress. Doing it just to do it will not progress you forward. It will keep you in a cycle of feeling like you're taking a step, but you're still standing in place. So it's crucial to always do everything with intention and make intention part of that repeatability. If you think about this time of year, most people become inconsistent. They're tired, they're distracted, they're drifting. This is where mastery becomes the separator. Because mastery doesn't rely on motivation. It relies on identity. Mastery keeps you grounded when the year gets noisy. Mastery keeps you consistent when life gets unpredictable. Mastery keeps you aligned when everyone else is falling off. April is where mastery becomes visible. A lot of people really have really, really good intentions at the beginning of the year. This is my year. I'm going to be more disciplined. I'm going to be more focused. I'm going to reach my goals. This time of year is when you see the people who are truly committed, and you see the people who started off really, really strong, but are losing that consistency. And the reason that happens is because motivation starts to fade. It's easy to have in the beginning because you start off feeling really good. The days that you stack are progress. You see more progress as you get closer and closer to your goal, but also as you get closer and closer to your goals, things get harder. So those days that you're stacking don't mean as much because you don't see the true progress towards the goal that you're trying to reach, because it's always a little harder the closer you get to it. So then as you start to not get that feeling anymore, you don't have that motivation because you're not seeing the progress, you start to let days slide. As the days slide, you lose traction, you lose the identity that you had, and you end up not getting to where you want to be by the end of the year. People who continue on have mastered the identity that they built at the beginning of the year. And although things are getting a little harder, things are getting a little tougher, schedules are getting a little crazy, they still will themselves to continue on the path, doing the things they need to with intention, even if they have to scale it back, even if they have to take a different approach. They do it with even more intention because they understand how important it is if they have to adjust their schedule for the time that they can commit to what they're trying to achieve. It means more at that point. So they do it with even more intention, building onto that identity, which then helps them get through that tough time, which is usually this time of year, and pushes them to the finish line. And what really helps them do that are the three pillars of mastery. Three pillars of mastery are precision. You don't just do the reps, you do them with intention. No matter if you have to scale it back, no matter if you have to cut back the time that you can give to whatever you're trying to achieve, you do it with intention, and most of the time you do it with even more intention than you did when you had the time to commit to it. The second pillar is consistency. You don't show up when it's convenient. You show up because it's who you are. And that is part of it. And I think people don't understand that aspect because they don't feel that. If I miss a day of working out, I feel that because that's part of who I am. If I miss a day working towards my goals, it affects me because that's who I am. You don't just show up because it's convenient. I don't do it because it's convenient. I don't do it just when it's convenient. I do it because it's a part of who I am. And without doing it, I can feel that identity kind of slip away. The third pillar is depth. You don't chase everything. You go deep on the things that matter. That is extremely important. There's a lot of things that I want to accomplish. But in order to accomplish everything that I want to accomplish, I have to focus on the things that matter the most right now. If I stretch myself too thin trying to accomplish so many things, and the things that truly, truly matter don't get the attention that they need, then everything suffers. So you have to really figure out, yes, you are limited on time. Yes, you are tired. Yes, you want to accomplish a lot of things. But what are the most important things that you need to stay on track with in order to accomplish those things and the rest of the things you want to accomplish? Mastery is built on fewer things done better. Just like I said in the beginning, that quote, I probably messed it up, but if you spent 1 hour focusing on one thing every single day of the year, you have 365 hours committed to that one thing. If you divided that hour up into 5 different things, it would cut down the amount of time that you gave to each thing. And you would have very few hours on a lot of different things versus committing to that one or two things and committing the time to it and accumulating a lot of hours to it and becoming an expert on those things, which will then help you achieve everything else that you're trying to achieve. Mastery requires honesty. You have to be honest about your weaknesses, your habits, your distractions, your excuses, your standards. Mastery forces you to confront the parts of yourself you've been avoiding, but that's where the growth is. I think that's a huge part of mastering something, understanding where you need to get better. And that falls in with mastery itself. Repeatable, reflection, refinement, and then repeatable again. So understanding your weaknesses, your habits, your distractions, and your standards, reflecting on those, refining those, and then throwing that into a repeatable action. That's where you'll grow. And that's where you will truly become the master of what you're trying to do. So here's the challenge for this week. Choose one area of your life and commit to mastery. Not improvement, not motivation, not trying hard, mastery. Commit to the reps, commit to the details, commit to the identity. Because mastery isn't something you achieve. Mastery is someone you become. If you want to achieve everything you are trying to achieve in 2026, you have to become a person who is successful in 2026. I have goals that I'm trying to achieve in 2026. One of those is to grow my podcast. And as I do that, I have to reflect, refine, and make it repeatable. And this past week, I did that. I actually listened to my last episode. And I've never done that before. But I listened to my last episode to see where I can make improvements, to figure out where I could be more engaging. How can I make this something that will be beneficial for everyone? And based on that reflection, I found some points in there that I need to work on to get better. And I hope to do that with each episode. And now that I know what I'm trying to work on, I'm going to make that repeatable. And hopefully I will be able to see a better version of what I'm doing with the podcast as I master the podcast platform. So what is something you are going to work on mastering this year? That is something that I think will help each and every person reach their goals. Focusing on what is the most important thing for them to accomplish this year. Doing it with intention. Making it repeatable. Yes, it will be boring. Yes, it will be a constant loop. But the closer and closer you get to mastery, the more exciting it is, because once you master what you're trying to achieve, that opens the doors to you achieving so much more. So this week, let's work on mastery. And as always, stay focused and be ready to unleash it.